Yeah.
And
Well, tell us a little bit. Why are you an avatar or a cartoon versus a live feed like us?
let's get the elephant out of the room. So
Yeah.
the days that I started at doing voiceover, I was always taught that a voiceover is to be heard, not seen. And so predominantly most of my career as a voiceover was based on the sound of my voice, not for what I look like. So it's just been my branding. Walt Disney did that himself when he would cast his animated movies. He would go into a room and then the actors would go into another room. So he wouldn't see them. He would just hear them. And they would be assigned numbers and he'd say, I like number 3, number 10, number 9, whatever. And they would narrow it down as opposed to basing it on how the person looked or if he knew the person or whatever. It was based solely on how they're sounding.
Yeah.
So my voice, I get a lot of roles that I probably would not get if someone saw what I look like, both old and young or whatever. So just uses the camera of the mind basically as to leaves that up to the listener.
My dad was a screenwriter. I wrote for a lot of famous shows, Hogan Tiros, Andy Griffith, Gomer Pyle, Mary Tyler Moore, Barney Miller, Charlie's Angels, Happy Days. I was always a big sports fan. I always wanted to be a sportscaster. My parents were very into current events, so I wanted to be a newscaster too. So I got my degree in broadcasting, but around the time I was getting my degree, a lot of my classmates that I went to school with in Malibu, people like Charlie Sheen and Rob Lowe, were making it big time. And I said, I think I'm going to stick around to LA a little bit and try the acting thing.
I did Christopher Robin for Winnie the Pooh and various other storyteller records. Like a lot of other kids, we're all young and thin and cute when we were little. So I started doing, if there was a cereal in the 70s, I probably was eating it as a child. We were always having to go up to the Simi Valley back then it was filmed at the Big Sky Ranch, which is in the Simi Valley north of Los Angeles.
People would move away from Los Angeles to live in a place like Wichita, Kansas, or Oklahoma City. But I was doing a story today for a local PBS show that I freelance for. And it was quite a drive, but it was a relaxing drive because there was so much open farmland. I spent my summers in northern Michigan because, again, as I mentioned earlier, my dad was from Ohio, and a lot of people from Ohio found this little area up in northern Michigan by Mackinac Island. A lot of people know Mackinac Island. So when I would go back in the summers, that's when I started realizing that where I grew up was atypical because people were absolutely fascinated by the work that my dad did. And that's when I started realizing how important certain shows were to people. They would just see Hollywood through their TVs, but actually knowing somebody that was living that life, they were really enamored with it. So that's when I started figuring out that this was not a typical upbringing.
I think, like what you said earlier, bringing the humanity to what we've done was just, I didn't choose how I grew up, and neither did Anthony, but we were hit the lottery as far as having the right parents at the right time.
A lot of playing tennis with Rod Steiger. Oh, people have always told me I have a great voice, but that's about 1/1 millionth of what it takes.
In those days, if we filmed at the NBC or wherever we were filming a TV show, it was just pure mayhem, but not on Michael Landon's set because he'd been a child actor. So he knew he knew what kind of mayhem could happen if we were not on the set blocking and rehearsing lines.